Today, folks, if you're into real estate, I got a real treat for you. Tim Bratz in the crib. What's cracking?
Man, excited to be here.
Dude, if you guys ain't following this guy, at Tim Bratz, B-R-A-T-Z, at Tim Bratz, you're going to want to. This dude's been in the business for quite a while. You got 4,000 doors. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of doors.
That's a lot of doors, yeah.
He's been doing this. He's studied, all kinds of personal development, mindset, the whole 9 yards. You're a literal, I would say, self-development guru that's practicing what you preach in the field of real estate.
Yeah, man. I mean, we were talking offline. Like, I think all this stuff, man, comes down to mindset, and I was really bad at business before I got good at business, and tried out a couple different businesses, went through some of them that were phenomenal at mindset and philosophies and just kind of reforming your thoughts. And I've taken those. They just weren't the right vehicles, and then real estate was the right vehicle. So like you said, I've been in real estate since 2005, been buying apartment buildings since 2012, and that's what I focus on almost exclusively now. I got a couple kind of like really unique high-end Airbnbs. I bought an island last year.
Island?
Yeah. In South Carolina. You know where like Hilton Head, South Carolina is?
Yeah.
So right next to that, there's a 110-acre island that I bought. I'm putting some like high-end glamping tents over there. So I do a few, it's kind of like lifestyle kind of properties as well.
You want to sell that island?
No, not really. I stole it, man. I got it.
Why wouldn't you just stick a nice private crib on there and just live there?
Yeah, I could. I live in Charleston, South Carolina on the beach already,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so this is about an hour from downtown Charleston, a little bit quieter of an area right next to Hilton Head, but about 20 minutes away driving. But it's just kind of, dude, it's very quiet. It's some of the best fishing and just, it's an amazing property. But anyways, I do some stuff like that. And I figure out how do you take liabilities that would typically pull money out of your pocket, right? If I just bought it and had it as a second home, I'd be cutting checks every single month to pay for this thing. Instead, I've always wanted to own an island. So I found an island. I'm like, how can I cash flow it, right? How can I turn this liability into an asset? And that's a big philosophy of how I bought that, how I bought my own beach house, how I initially, now I live in my beach house, but how I bought this ridiculous house up in the mountains of Western North Carolina, kind of a log, it's almost like a castle. But I always wanted something like that, right? And I'm like, hey, how can I do that? Well, you can buy it, you can Airbnb it part of the year. I host masterminds at them sometimes. And then I'm able to use it, for 8 weeks a year on my own too.
Folks, by the way, if you like what you're hearing, legacywealthholdings.com, because you do have masterminds.
Yeah, I do.
You raise money, you teach people this, you do it, and collectively, if anybody's interested in this type of thing, there's a dude to look out to and or reach out to get involved. But you don't really dick with a lot of beginners. You got more experience.
I mean, naturally, I hit this wave of buying apartments a few years before it became cool to buy apartment buildings. Yeah. So I was, half-assed just posting on social media. Dude, I truly believe wealth is abundant, right? Like, I think it's like sunshine, right? If I teach you how to go and buy apartments, it doesn't take any deals away from me. In fact, we were collaborating thinking, hey, maybe we go and raise some money together. Maybe we go and take down some deals together, right? And like you getting sunshine doesn't take any sunshine away from me. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think wealth is the same way. I think there's more collaboration than competition when you teach other people how to do this stuff. Because as I was just active on social media, I got people saying, hey, can I buy a deal from you? Can I sell a deal to you? Can we joint venture? Can I invest money with you? Or can I pay you to coach me? And so that turned into kind of a coaching type thing of it's mostly people who already have some experience in real estate and they're looking to scale up into like, I think everybody gets involved in real estate for the allure of passive income, like that residual income, that mailbox money that gets deposited every single month. And then all of a sudden we get stuck in this friggin' transactional rat race of trading our time for money, doing a deal, selling it, and then doing a deal again, right? Selling it, doing a deal again in order to get paid again. And when you get into commercial real estate, you actually get into that passive and residual income. So a lot of the people that I'm connected with, they're looking to scale out of that transactional side of things. They've had a lot of success, made money there.
Like flipping.
Like flipping, right. Flipping houses, wholesaling houses, which is a great way to get started, but you don't want to stay there, right? You want to actually get into some bigger, better assets that you can hold long-term and really build that legacy wealth.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, have limited mindset when it comes to this, and that's why they don't get involved. I could never own an apartment complex like that. Oh, you need some sort of major credit to get that. Oh, you need a bunch of money to get that. When in reality, it's almost easier.
It is
to buy a 100-unit complex than it is a house. No,
I mean, there's a lot more competition in houses, right? A lot more people can afford a house.
But the bank looks at that like a business. So if you find the deal and you go to the bank doesn't go on comps in the neighborhood. It doesn't go on value of the property or the thing. It goes on the cash flow. It goes on the history of the rent roll, et cetera.
Yep.
And I again, I'm just tiptoeing into it, but I've hung around people that know this, and I've heard many stories where it's easier to buy a 100-unit complex than it is a house in some cases.
Almost every case, yeah. It's when a bank looks at a house, they're looking 90% on the borrower and 10% based on the property. When a bank looks at an apartment building, they're looking 90% based on the apartment building, 10% based on the borrower. Now, there's essentially 3 boxes you have to check in order to get a loan on an apartment building. One is you got to have the net worth equal to the loan amount. So if you're buying a $10 million building and your loan's going to be $8 million, you need to have a net worth equal to $8 million. Or you and your joint venture partners, it could be a couple of people added up. Mm-hmm. You also have to have liquidity equal to 10% of that loan amount. So $800,000 liquid. And then the last thing is you got to have experience in owning or managing that many units. Somebody like you who has business experience and has the cash flow and has the liquidity and has the net worth, you could hire a rock star management company and check that last box without needing the experience yourself.
Well, would the bank buy that? Like, hey, I'm hiring them.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So they would underwrite the management company instead of you from that, just from the management experience standpoint. Yeah, they'd still look at you financially.
Yeah. Because that's the one that always stops me, because I don't really have the experience. Yeah. And a lot of the guys I was talking to, that's what they're saying. Like, wait a minute, you got to have experience.
Yep.
Now you got to get experience somehow, right? So where do you get your experience if you have to have some?
Yeah, great question. 2 ways. One would be organically grow, right? I started out with an 8-unit apartment building. And then I bought another 8-unit, and then I bought a 12-unit, and then I bought a 23-unit, then I bought a 31-unit, and I organically grew with small buildings up to a couple hundred doors. And then I could actually get a seat at the table to make an offer on and negotiate on and actually earn and win the bid on a 200-unit apartment building, because I owned 200 units that were smaller, right? And I organically grew. That takes some time, but guess what? I'm really good at what I do today because, dude, I paid my dues, right, for years and years and years. The other way to do it is how we were talking. You could partner up with somebody who's already got the experience.
Do I get credit for that?
Yeah. What value do you bring to the table? Somebody like you could raise money easily, right? You have an amazing audience of people who know you and trust you and know that you wouldn't back something that was dog shit, right? So if they know you and trust you and want to get involved in a deal with you, it's like what Grant Cardone does, right? Like, he has a lot of influence. There's people who trust him that want to invest with him. You could do that same thing and say, hey, Tim, I can bring money to your deal. Tim, you handle the operations of it. And then we kind of link hands, right? Like we join forces, and 1 + 1 = 3. We can go and do more deals because it's one less thing that a great operator would have to deal with, right? Because then they can just focus on finding deals and operations.
Would I get credit as experience?
Yeah. If you're
even
a
though
general
you're the
partner,
one doing it all?
If you're a general partner, which you would be, if you're helping to raise money or you're bringing your balance sheet to co-sponsor a loan, that's like co-sign on the loan, then you would earn equity on the GP side. That's the general partner side. And that's what the bank looks at. If you just wrote me a check for $200,000 and say, hey, I want to passively invest as a limited partner or an LP, then they wouldn't count that as experience and ownership and managing. That you want to be a GP, a general partner.
Now, where did you start? How old were you when you bought your first house?
Dude, I was going through college, 03 to 07, when the market was going crazy, and I'm a money-hungry kid. I want to go and make money, and wanted to be an entrepreneur. I learned pretty early that I was not employable, And so everybody's making money, and they're like, go and get a job in real estate. So I started out in the trades. I had like a painting company, and I'd paint houses in the summertime. And then I interned for a big home builder. And dude, I remember this home builder at this like a Monday morning meeting. The VP comes in with a stack of $100 bills. Dude, I'm a broke college kid at the time, right? And he goes, somebody give me a good idea. And people just started raising their hands, giving him ideas. And he just gave everybody a $100 bill. Even if they had a shitty idea, a bad idea, he still gave them a $100 bill. I was like, how much money is in this real estate thing? And so I knew that I wanted to like pursue that. My brother lived in New York City. So I moved out to New York. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, originally. I moved out to New York, lived with him, got my real estate license, which is, I think, how a lot of people think they need to get involved in real estate, which you don't. That's a fallacy. You can start investing without having your real estate license instead. And actually, a real estate license in a lot of ways can be a hindrance to investing.
Why?
So there's extra disclaimers, disclosures, certain types of contracts that you have to use.
Because you're a realtor?
Yeah. If you got a real estate license, you couldn't market yourself as Brad Lee, the real estate investor. You'd have to market it as a Keller Williams agent, Brad Lee, with your name smaller than Keller Williams. Or any brokerage, right? Doesn't matter who it is. It could be EXP. It could be, any of them. So there's certain things where they kind of have your hands tied. Certain disclosures, certain paperwork that you have to use in order to stay compliant with the state. Especially if you're investing in commercial real estate, man. There's no need for that. So
what's the advantage? Extra commission?
Yeah, but you want to be a real estate agent or do you want to be a real estate investor, right? You want a job or you want to own a business? And so maybe when you're early on getting started and you want to get some of that education, I think there is some benefits to going through the education. Just don't get the license, or get the license with the intent of letting this thing fold in the next 3 years, so that way you can be a full-time real estate investor. Because the money's not made in brokering, right? I moved out to New York City. I got my real estate license, and I parked it with a commercial brokerage that did like retail leases and like office leases and that kind of stuff. And I closed a deal. You ever been in New York?
Yeah.
Okay. Greenwich Village, corner of Bleecker and Thompson. There's a building with 8 retail spaces and like 10 stories of apartments. The owner gave us a 400 square foot space in an off street in Greenwich Village to market. I signed a lease with a falafel shop for $10,000 a month on a 12-year lease term with 4% annual increases on the rent. As a money-hungry kid, 21, 22 years old, I started doing the math and realized this owner is going to make $1.8 million on this one unit over the next 12 years for something they did one time. And I needed to get out of brokering real estate and start owning real estate. That was one of those moments in time where you're like, holy shit, I got hit in the middle of the forehead of like, I need to be on that side of the coin.
Yeah. And how old were you then?
22. So I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I live now. And I started buying my first house when I was 23 years old. I bought it.
Yeah, but how? Did you have a shit ton of money in the bank? Did you have
No.
good credit? Someone co-signed?
Yeah, all right, so this is 2008. I decided I'm going to become a real estate investor, right? June of 2008, I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina. And I go through that analysis paralysis phase, right? I'm reading everything, I'm trying to learn, I'm following the gurus online. And all of a sudden, October of 2008 happens, and the entire market collapses. And it was like, I was the kid who showed up to the party, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm here, let's have a good time. And everybody's running out the back door saying, run, because they're like, real estate's horrible. And I remember looking at the market and looking at different investors and seeing some people that absolutely got clobbered and went bankrupt. They were worth tens of millions of dollars on paper and went bankrupt in a very short amount of time. And I remember looking at other people and seeing them flourish. In fact, they started buying fucking everything. And I was like, how does the same market happen to both of these types of people? But some people sink and other ones swim. And it's because of the business model, right? Like these people were doing speculative real estate. They were buying at a retail price, hoping tomorrow it's worth more than it is today. It was speculation, right? They weren't actually adding value. There was no sweat equity going into these deals versus the people over here who were buying rental property. If it rents, if it cash flows, if it covers your operating expenses and your debt service, and it kicks off, puts a little bit of money in your pocket every single month, dude, you can ride out any economic storm. You are still, when the banks weren't lending money, they were still lending it to these people over here because they had cash flow coming in from their businesses still. So that's the difference. And that's why my model, that's why my business is modeled after that.
So my question is like, why do people sell their buildings?
So I'm selling some stuff. I was at just shy of 5,000 doors. I sold about 1,000. I'm selling probably another 1,000 actually. You remember how I talked about like growing organically?
But whoever you sell it to, I would assume, is going to make money, all that cash flow, and then it's going to go up in equity, and they're going to be like, yes, and they bought it from you.
Yeah.
If you just held it, wouldn't you see the same returns?
Yes. The difference is opportunity cost. So for me, I sold all my small buildings. Those 8 units, those 24 units, those 36 units. I sold all of those because you don't have scale and management in those properties. You can't, it's not big enough to have on-site maintenance, on-site management, on-site leasing. Those aren't big enough. You need usually in the working force housing, you probably need 70 to 80 doors in order to have on-site management and maintenance. If you're not at that, then typically you're paying a third-party management company to send people out and drive to the building all the time, which can really eat up a lot of the returns. So for me, I sold off all my small buildings and the C-class stuff. The C-class buildings, that's kind of like A-class is where you desire to live. I'm talking about areas. B-class is like, they're safe, but there's definitely somewhere else where you don't want to stay there, maybe, It's more like blue collar. It's where I grew up, in a very blue collar town in Cleveland, Ohio. And then C-class is like, hey, I'll go there during the day, but I definitely don't want to live there, And so when you're buying properties, a lot of the big guys and real estate trusts and hedge funds, they're buying the A-class stuff because they have FU money, right? They can just park it and they can sit on it long term. For a guy like me, who comes from, my dad was a cop, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, I need to go and create equity. So I had to buy a bunch of C-class properties, put sweat equity in, create some appreciation, but I didn't want to stay there. So I want to sell it. It's a great place to get started and start building your portfolio. It got me to where I am today, but I don't want that long term. Long term, I want the B+, A-class type stuff.
Why didn't you just invest with other people doing it?
Passively?
Yeah.
I didn't have any money. I had to go create equity. I found like,
well, that's what I'm trying to drive. So people listening that want to get involved, like, instead of saving up money and giving it to someone, why not do it yourself? Like, to me, when people always say, well, why don't you have a bunch? Well, because I want to kind of do it myself, and I'm so busy with my other businesses that I don't, but then I'm also missing out on the gains.
Yep.
However, I like short-term gains. I got a lot of investments that like pay me 6 months or a year or less, and I like those. But
well, it's nice to have your money come back, right? And you
quick.
feel comfortable with that and confident with that.
Yeah, like I got one that's like, dude, it's a beautiful deal.
Yeah. And
every time I think about, let me go get this or let me go start that, something always makes me go, your money's going to be gone for a while. So I always haven't.
Yep.
But I want to do it myself. Like, I want to go find a deal. I don't care if I have a partner, but I kind of want to find a deal, walk the property, see, do you look at the roof? Do you look at the toilets? Do you see if there's carpet? Why? Well, if there's carpet, and I assume you put in some wood floors, you won't have as much shit to fix when there's move outs.
It's called hardening the property.
Yeah. So like, how does that work? What are you looking for? So at least I'm educated in the property. So I'm not just at someone's, mercy.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely benefit to doing both. Right? Like, I didn't come from money, so I didn't have money to passively invest. So I need to go and create equity.
So how'd you get your first house?
I bought it on a credit card. I called it my credit card company. I was a year out of school, had my first credit card. I had $3,000 limit on it, and called my credit card company. I was like, I need you to increase my limit. And they're like, how much? I think I put my finger up to my mouth, and I was like, $100,000. And they're like, they started laughing at me. And they're like, absolutely not. You've been a great customer for 15 months, but we're not going to give you that kind of credit increase. This is in January 2009. Yeah. And so I was like, well, how much can you give me? And they're like, 15 grand. So I found literally the cheapest house on the entire MLS in all of Charleston, South Carolina. It was a dumpy little duplex in a C-class neighborhood at best, listed for 25. And dude, I went in low. Went in at 12. They came back at 20. I went in at 14,000, which was the most I could go, and they accepted it. And so I took a balance transfer check and I wrote it to myself. I bought the property with a balance transfer check
for 14 G's.
14 G's, dude. This is 2009, man.
Shithole.
Yeah, it was a pig, and I put lipstick on the pig, and I sold it for 33 grand. 110 days later. 2677 Tillman Street, North Charleston.
Now, do you think timing has a lot to do with it?
No, I think there's deals in every market.
Because what if you'd bought at the highest and then bam, the crash happened?
No, for sure. On speculative real estate, absolutely, that has a big deal. For me, if you follow certain principles and ways to mitigate risk, no, there's not. It's like if you buy at a discount, right? You don't buy at a retail price, you buy at a discounted price.
How do you know what that is, though?
Well, all right, so let's go back to single family. Single family is it's valued based on comparable approach.
Yeah, comps.
Yeah, comps. So what did the house down the street sell for? It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. Mine's the same size. Mine will sell for the same amount. The speculation comes in that I'm buying it, renovating it, putting it back on the market, hoping it sells in 6 months, and the values stay the same, right? If values drop over that 6 months, could cause an issue. Commercial real estate doesn't have the peaks or the valleys that residential real estate has. It's valued based on a business. So it doesn't. So it's valued based on what is the cash flow, what is the net operating income. It's called the income approach. How much income does it have minus the expenses equals the net operating income, and then there's a multiple of that called a cap rate. You might have heard of, and that multiple gives you the value of what that building is. So if you can predictably say, hey, if I renovate this building and I attract quality tenants, here's what the market rents range, right, in the area. I'm not going to charge a premium. I charge just kind of middle of the road, but I have the nicest units, so I attract the best tenants in town, and they never leave. Right? And I stay full because that turnover is actually the biggest expense in owning rental property. So if you can minimize that, you're in good shape. So you renovate it. Here's what the rents, predictably what the income's going to be, and then you know what the expenses are, whether you have 100 units occupied or no units occupied.
Well, how do you know the variables though?
The variables are taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, and management. Like that's.
I know, but you never know, dude. You get a broken shitter, there's money.
Yeah. So
air conditioner goes out, there's money.
Great point. So every time that I buy a building, I'm renovating the entire thing. New mechanicals, new roof, new windows, new flooring, new paint, new fixtures. And when it's all new, that way you have very predictable maintenance schedules. And there's always a variable, there's always a reserve that you set aside for maintenance. But when you renovate a building on the front end and you really clean it all up and it's in good shape, you can actually set aside, the banks require you to set aside about $250 per unit per year for just additional maintenance. But you can do a little bit more than that because you'll have, actually your maintenance payroll. If there's somebody on payroll doing some work, you'll have like a supplies, material, and that kind of stuff. So like that's all stuff that you can pro forma out. And even if you don't have a pro forma, you talk to a mortgage broker and say, hey, what's the normal utility cost in this area, or what's the tax rate? You can look up all that stuff. It's all very predictable.
So if a apartment building has $1,200 a month rent, the one right down the road's likely roughly same amount.
Not necessarily.
So how do you know?
If they're the same size, you can call the leasing office. What is this one rented for? If it's posted on Zillow or apartments.com or any of those, you can run rent comparables the same way that you can with home sales comparables. And you can see what everything's renting for. We use something called Rentometer, right? Like, I don't know, it's like $10 a month or something. And you can type in 123 Main Street, and you could take a radius, however big you want, and say, hey, for a 1-bedroom apartment or 2-bedroom apartment or 5-bedroom house, like anything you want, and it pulls everything within like a 5-mile radius or a 1-mile radius, depending on how concise you want it to be. And it'll give you a range. It'll say, hey, here's the median rental rate, but rents really go up to $1,400. They go down to $1,100, right? The median is $1,250 though. And so you can say, all right, I think I can get $1,250 if I have the nicest units in town. And maybe I can get $1,300 or even $1,400. I never underwrite it at that. I'll always kind of kind of stress test the numbers, and I'll stress test it at $1,250. And if I can get $1,300, God willing, then it juices your numbers even more.
What's the biggest deal? Meaning, how many units should one look for that wants to do their first deal and themselves? They don't want partners. They just want to go get their feet wet.
I would say any size. Just get a deal. Right?
I know, but like if they're big and you have no experience, they're not going to do it.
I would say there's a sweet spot between about 20 doors to 80 doors because it's too big for the small investors and it's too small for the big investors. So that's a good pocket where you can go find some great deals, take one down, test it out yourself, and see if you like that.
Yeah,
Here's what you're going to find, though, Brad. You're going to find that, yeah, you want to know about it, but you're going to quickly realize it's like you and me grabbing a drink, right? And we go to a bar, and we're having beers, and we're like, we should open a restaurant. It's a fucking bad idea. Just because you drink in a bar doesn't mean you should open a bar, right? And real estate, people have a comfortability with it because of HGTV and all the home flipping shows and stuff. So like they think they can just get into real estate and know what they're doing. It's a new business. It's a full-time business. It's not a part-time business. If you want to be part-time, you either need to partner with somebody who knows their shit or you need to passively invest. Those are the two ways to get involved.
All right, well, walk me through, in my mind, where I'm wrong. So I'm thinking to myself, let me just go learn this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I go find a 50-unit building. I buy it. Assuming I qualify for all the financial stuff. The experience, I wouldn't qualify. So
get a management company.
Well, I would tell them, look, I'm going to hire this management company. Mm-hmm. They usually generally charge, 5-10% of rent?
Depending on the size of the building. Yeah, I mean.
50 units.
50 units, you're probably going to be in that, 5 to 8.
So 50 units of B.
Mm-hmm. 5 to 8% probably.
Okay, so I qualify. Bam. I write them a check. Now that's my property. The cash flow that was happening prior to my purchase, wouldn't it start happening, but now it's my cash flow instantly?
Yeah.
Well, then I'm instantly in business. I let the management take it, and now I just do the cash flow.
Yeah. So if you have a good management company, if you're buying something that's turnkey, that's already been renovated, let's say
what if I don't touch it, man? No one's touching it now.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't mean it's operating properly.
I know, but again, because correct my thinking, because I'm not saying I'm right.
No, totally.
I'm thinking this is what I would do. I'd tell someone to find it. Now, why would I go spend a bunch of money fixing it up if everybody's paying their rent and everybody's happy? Now, shit or breaks, I'm going to go fix it. I'm not, but management company will.
Yep.
Now, a new roof, new windows, new floors, new appliances, new everything. The only way I would do that is if I knew that I could raise the rent. Mm-hmm. And how do you raise the rent just because you put a new refrigerator into place?
Yep. So, great question.
Right. So at the end of the day, I would hold off on that and I wouldn't do anything. I would just buy the cash flow. And so if it was making $1,500 as is for the previous owner, it'd make $1,500 for me, as an example.
Yep. And
so
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So now I buy it and I think, okay, if that $1,500, and I'm just using that number, is enough as a rate of return on what I had to put down, well, then I've got cash flow coming in. And that's the whole game.
And don't rock
cash
the boat.
Flow.
You should, yeah.
Yeah. And then now the property's probably worth what it's worth. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Yep.
Natural time hopefully would increase the equity. But now I go in and I say, hey, they never had a park in the middle of that bitch. I'm going to go take out that patch of trees and I'm going to slam a park right there. Right now, from that day forward, it's $20 a month more for a unit if it goes empty. If it's full, it's full. I won't raise anyone's rent. Mm-hmm. But now, if one goes empty, it goes from $900 a month to $920.
Yeah. So, couple points. If it's turnkey, dude, leave it. Don't rock the boat. Typically, the buildings that I'm buying are value add properties. Right? Somebody's paying $700 or $800 a month in rent when they should be paying $1,200 if that unit was rented. So a quick variable, this is a good takeaway for any real estate people watching. We want a 20% return on our renovation dollars. So if I know that I can bump rent by $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year. A 20% return means I would invest up to $6,000 into turning over that unit because I can get a 20% return on the rental bump. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And that's our barometer. So that's where we say, hey, we're going to turn this unit or we're not going to turn this unit. Because if somebody's already paying that extra $100 and they don't want anything done to their unit, then why the hell would you ever? Absolutely, you wouldn't do that until it naturally turns over and they move out and they're moving to Mississippi or something, right? So you would leave it like that. Great point. Does that make sense though?
Yep.
To your point on adding amenities, I look to add amenities that actually make money. Right, that add to the bottom line. You can add a park. Do people pay more for a park? Maybe. You know what they do pay more for that you can quantify is I'll give you an example. Like a lot of the buildings that I bought are in like South Carolina, Georgia, built like in the 70s vintage. These 3-story walk-ups. 2 or 3 story walk-ups. And they all have tennis courts, dude. Everybody played tennis, I guess, back then. And we have all these like old ass tennis courts, beat up pavement, and the rusted out chain link fences that are 2 stories high. And you can go in there and you can rip that out and just make it green grass, but that doesn't make any money. And it's going to cost you, I don't know, $5,000 in order to rip it all out. Instead, we're like, how can we make money from this? Asking yourself better questions leads to better answers. How can we turn this liability into an asset? We went back and we said, hey, we can make this a dog park. So we painted the fence. We laid out a bunch of turf on the pavement. And then, or you can even paint the pavement. We've done that at a couple of ones. So it's going to be between, and you get a doggy bag dispenser and garbage dumpster, right? By doing that, you now attract pet owners who pay an extra $50 per month per pet. And they pay a non-refundable pet fee of usually $200. So now you're adding revenue to your building and taking an amenity that would have cost you $5,000 to get rid of it, and you're spending $1,000 to $5,000 to actually make money on it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I'm always looking at that. If there's storage in the basement or if there's a basement space, I'm thinking, can we put storage down here and rent this out for $50 a month? If there's garages, you can rent those out. So I'm looking at ways to make money if I'm going to add amenities.
What about like garbage service?
Yeah, dude, valet trash, that's money. Especially if you have a bigger building where you have maintenance people on payroll. You could say, hey, we're going to charge an extra $30 a month for valet trash. That means you don't have to go and walk down 2 flights of stairs with a leaking bag of garbage across the parking lot in the rain, lift up the dumpster, hope a raccoon doesn't jump on your friggin' neck, and then it breaks and you got to pick up all this, right? Like, you don't have to do that anymore. Pay $30 a month. We're going to send our maintenance guy around, who's already on payroll, by the way, so it doesn't add any expense to you as the owner. We're going to send our maintenance guy around, and he's going to come by every Tuesday and Friday, Tuesday and Saturday, whatever, 2 days a week. And you just set your garbage outside of your door, and then they go and grab that, and they make their rounds twice a week, and it's an added amenity. Now, here's the beauty in this. Of why do you want to raise rents? Kind of going back to your question, I'm getting out a calculator. Going back to your question of like, why even rock the boat? Let's say you bought a 50-unit apartment building. Give me a rental rate that nobody would ever move out of their apartment for if you bumped up their rent.
In my opinion, but I'm jaded, a couple $100, but probably they would. So let's say 100.
Let's say 50.
Okay, $50.
I'm going to say $50 a month on a 100-unit apartment building.
Well, this one's 50.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. 50-unit apartment building times $50 a month gets you an extra $2,500 a month. Okay? Mind you, the expenses don't change, whether somebody's paying $1,000 or $1,050, right? Nothing else changes. Management's the same, maintenance is the same, all that, everything else stays the same. Taxes, insurance. So you're getting an extra $2,500 straight to the bottom line per month. Times 12 months is an extra $30,000. Do you know what the cap rate is here in Vegas?
Well, I mean, it depends.
4%, dude. Okay,
yeah.
5%.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 6%. Conservatively, that's going to give, in most of the B-class areas of like secondary cities in the Midwest and the Southeast where I invest, it's usually around a 6% cap rate. So I'm going to divide by 0.06, that $30,000 annual additional income, $500,000 of increased value to the property because you raised everybody's rent by $50 and nobody moved out, no renovations were done, nothing happened. But because all that money went straight to the bottom line and because there's a multiplier effect of value to every dollar that you either increase or every dollar that you save, it increased your net worth by $500,000, your value of the building by $500,000. So do you see how it's very predictable? If I can bump rents, if I can save on taxes, if I can save on insurance, if I can save on utilities, if I can put in low flow toilets, LED light bulbs, if I can harden the property by putting in, luxury vinyl tile floors, like that luxury vinyl plank stuff, instead of having carpet, if I put granite countertops in instead of laminate countertops, because granite will last longer and it's going to attract a higher paying tenant. I'm doing things like that increase income, decrease expenses. I obsess over it with my team. How can we increase income? How can we decrease expenses? So we're looking at all that kind of stuff. Dude, you can call up a cable company. They can come and wire the entire building for TV and internet where your tenants would typically be paying $150, $200 a month for that service, because you wire the entire building and you have a master account, you could probably offer to them for $100. And it only costs you $50 a month. So now you're making another $50 a month spread on that, times another 50 doors. That's increased another $500,000.
That's the game, just trying to increase that value.
That's it, man. And a lot of people only look at the rents. You got to go deeper. There's multiple levels of this.
Then you go refi the bitch.
Dude, it's insane.
Now, last, what about depreciation? I know that you get to write off, an apartment building for a while. How does that work?
Yeah, so apartment buildings are still grouped under residential laws when it comes to depreciation. So like your house, it would depreciate in 27 and a half years. So if you did nothing, you bought a house for $1 million, you'd take about $30,000 a year of depreciate, 35 or whatever it would be. But you can, in commercial real estate, it's over 40 years. But apartments still fall under the residential side of things. So that's still 27 and a half years. So it's good. You get more depreciation up front. They got something called a cost segregation study that you can do now, where you can go in. It's kind of like, instead of taking the whole building and saying the whole thing depreciates over 27 years and it equally depreciates every year by that much, you could say, hey, the flooring only lasts 10 years. So you depreciate the flooring over 10 years. This trim only lasts 12 years. The appliances are only going to last 6 years, right? The HVAC is only going to last 8 years. So you're doing all these different things where you can consolidate and like expedite the depreciation and front end load it.
Who does that though? Your accountant?
No, there's companies that'll do it, and it usually, depending on the cost of the building or the size of the building, it's typically $5 to $10,000. So on a small building, might not make sense. On a big building, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
right. Like
sure.
on the deal that I just did with Ryan Pineda, who was on here, we have a $20 million building, right? So we bought two properties, $20 million. If you do a cost segregation study, you get about a quarter of that in depreciation in year one. So that's $5 million of depreciation that we're expecting in the first year. So that means you can make $5 million of cash flow, right? Now, here's the key. If you're a full-time real estate professional like me, I can actually offset my active earned income with my passive depreciation losses. You are not a full-time real estate professional. So you can only offset your passive income with your passive losses, right? So if I go and flip another, like I have a coaching business, but it's not my full-time. I make 7 figures from that coaching business. My depreciation can offset that because it's not my full-time. I'm a full-time real estate guy.
Who decides?
You have to spend, so it needs to be where majority of your time is spent. You allocate it with your CPA. So you mark it on your tax returns. And you have to dedicate 750 hours per year to doing it, to being in real estate. But if you have a full-time job and you still dedicate 750 hours, they're not going to look at it that way. It needs to be your primary time focus. And typically that means your primary source of income as well. But the good news is it doesn't go away. That your depreciation still stays. It just offsets any other passive gains that you have. So if you have passive gains in, I think crypto would be considered the same thing. Definitely other dividends, your other loans, right? You said you have some other loans that are short-term that you're just crushing on the returns. Well, dude, you're paying earned income tax bracket at that. Even though they're loans, it's whatever your tax bracket is right now. So this depreciation that you would get from your real estate would offset a lot of the taxes that you're paying on those gains. Mm-hmm. So a guy like you, it makes a lot of sense to still invest in commercial real estate for the depreciation purposes because you got your hands in a bunch of different buckets making returns in a bunch of different ways. But it would also offset the cash flow that's coming in from that specific building too.
What do you think an average, like what is it in cash flow per door on average? So if I said I have 4,000 doors, what's the average?
Yeah, I would say,
per door?
Assuming everything's stabilized, right? Like I have some deals that are in the middle of construction or they're being renovated or they're through the value add process right now, or we're trying to bump rents through the next rental cycle. When I buy a building, I renovate it, stabilize it, meaning it's 90% plus occupied at market rate rents, and then I refinance it. I typically put somewhere between a 70 to 75% loan on that property. That way I cash out my investors. They get all their money back. They still keep their equity forever though. But we don't have any of our own cash in play any longer, right? And it's just the bank loan. In that scenario with about a 75% loan to value loan on your building, you're probably going to cash flow about $150 per door per month. And that's a general number. It depends on the interest rate, obviously. What if you have interest only versus principal and interest payments? So there's some building, like I got a 200 unit building that cash flows $300 per month.
No.
But I have an interest only loan at 4% or 3.5% or whatever. So
Now,
a lot of that stuff depends, you know.
Yeah, well, it always depends, but on average.
On average.
So I like to give opportunities to the bomb squad. If someone's out there got a deal, they don't have the money, can they call you and find help?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I've partnered with a lot of people. If you have the experience, I'll actually joint venture with you, right? If you can show me that you've had experience in owning and operating real estate, I'll actually joint venture. You can have some equity.
Well, what if it's just some dude that found a deal?
They just found a deal, send it to me, and I'll either pay you a fee or I'll kick you a smaller piece of equity just for bringing the deal, and you can still be a partner in it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an opportunity for people listening. They don't need to, you know, because I get people when they hear me talk about, I'm thinking about getting in it, and the episode drops, just like this one. I'll get a bunch of DMs, you know, hey, I got this off-market property, and and they're always in these little areas and towns I know nothing about. So I'm like, damn, but I want them to be sent to someone that could actually do something, because it must be frustrating to send a bunch of deals to someone and not get any of them bought.
Yep.
So again, you can send them to me because I'm always on the lookout, but I would send them to him. Yeah. Just DM you, or how do they do that?
Yeah. Shoot me a DM. I mean, we have, if you go to legacywealthholdings.com, the website that you shared, there's like a deal submission form where you can actually submit a deal. We have a pretty tight buy box now, right? I'm not just buying 18 unit buildings in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, right? Yeah. I'm buying 100 unit buildings in A and B plus kind of areas, mostly of the Southeast.
Trophy properties.
Yeah. You know, they're not super luxury, but they're like, you know, average rent of $1,200 to $1,500 a month, right? Nice properties, good tenants, you know, workforce, but like good desirable areas where you want your kids to go to school, safe to walk around, that kind of thing. So I have a pretty tight buy box, but we have an entire network through my mastermind and everything of people who are buying all across the country who have totally different buying parameters than I have. So
submit a deal.
Submit a deal, and we'll at least connect you with somebody who could buy it. Now,
why not go with a triple net lease on commercial?
Yeah, I mean, those are great. They're great. I mean,
you don't dick with those though.
I've looked at some, and I would do it if I found the right deal. The thing is, if you got one tenant, it's like owning a single family house, right? When it goes vacant, dude, you don't have any income coming in. In my apartments, if some of the tenants move out, I still have the majority of the other tenants in place, so I don't worry about cash flow and the highs and the lows. So that's
like office building.
But if it's an office building,
skyscrapers.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something. It's a different asset class, right? And there's nuances and benefits and downsides to every asset class. You know, self-storage. I've made a lot of money in the just handful of self-storage deals that I've done. But self-storage can also get saturated very easily and starts cannibalizing itself.
Yeah.
Well, office is cool other than when COVID-19 happens and everybody friggin' works from home, right? There's still people that work, and I think that's always going to be around, but there's definitely less office space that people need. Retail is awesome, except, you know, Amazon is now the largest corporation and makes all their money by taking retail out of brick and mortar and putting it into e-commerce, you know? So there's good and bad to everything. You got to figure out what are you good at, man? And every asset class is its own industry. It's its own business. It's like learning something new. And every time I kind of venture away from apartments, I cut my teeth on apartments. It's what I know. It's what I've done a lot of deals for a long time at a high volume. And we're just, dude, it's like a science, right? We have it down to a science. It's so predictable for us that it's every time I dick around with a different asset class, I end up losing time and losing money and opportunity cost.
Stick with what you know. Folks, also, he gave me a gift for my little ones. They're basically children's books, but based on the classic Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and the Power of Positive Thinking. And I can tell you right now, kids need those books because they won't understand the real books, but these are kids' books for them. As soon as I get home, I'm giving them my little girls. I'm going to have them read them to me, or they like to read to me, and have them start going through there because they'll get books from their school and they'll start reading these books. And I'm like, what the hell? Like some of these books that they're reading is like, there was one that was just like, I'm thinking, how is this even legal? These are little kids. Why are they reading this book? It was talking about shit like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And I'm always wondering, my friend Andy Frisella has a couple kids' books.
Yeah.
And like, we got those. They loved them. And they teach them real shit. So like, this is the only other set that I've seen. So I want to let these guys know, go to littlelegacylibrary.com. Get your kids Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, How to Win Friends, Influence People, The Power of Positive Thinking. That's not the name of them. It's the equivalent of them.
Yep. They're kids' versions of those books. So
what ages?
I would say they're kind of like, probably like Andy Frisella's books, right? Otis and, what's Otis and...
Charlie.
Charlie, yeah. And I have those books for my kids too. Those are the closest thing to these. He's teaching, principles of hard work and great work ethics. Yeah, for sure. And that's super important. This essentially boils down some of the best philosophies of Think and Grow Rich, right? How to set goals, how to become, have a burning desire to achieve those goals, having to sacrifice things you care about for something you care even more about, right? Having maybe delaying gratification, and that kind of stuff. So that's what, ours, it's not Think and Grow Rich. It's think big and go to baseball camp, right? And so the kid wants to go to baseball camp and he's obsessing over it. And the issue is he doesn't have any money, right? And he's got to be able to figure it out and pay for it himself. And so that's a cool book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. We have How to Win Class President and Influence Peers. And so it's about a kid who's running for class president and has to go and put forth the philosophies in Dale Carnegie's book about how to influence, right? How to get people to like you, how to have good conversations, how to actually give a shit about what other people are saying and pay genuine interest, how to use people's names in conversation, right? Like,
this should be taught in school.
And it's not.
No, it is not.
I got off of an airplane, like I told you before. It was like, and I was like, and I started Googling what's out there, and there were no books. And I think when, you have a seed planted by the universe in the back of your head and there's nothing out there, they're like, listen, this is the nudge. You need to make these things. So I actually sat on the idea for a couple of years and then partnered up with my wife and one of our best friends, a girl that I went to high school with. And I kind of had the idea and gave some insight, but the ladies are the ones who are the rock stars that share the stories and tell the stories and wrote the entire book. And there's workbooks to go along with them as well. But they're powerful, man. It's been kind of a pet project, right? I haven't really focused on the growth of it, but I need to. It's a pay it forward. It's an impact piece for me long term.
Guys, go blow it up. littlelegacylibrary.com. Get as a gift. If you have kids, get them for yourself. Follow Tim at Tim Bratz, Bratz. Tim, I appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, man. Great questions. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for all the value that you always give, man. I love what you're doing.
Well, my pleasure. It's because I'm about to tiptoe into this little area, and I'm asking you questions I want to know.
I can tell.
I'm gonna ask you some more offline, but folks, if you guys want to ask him some more, DM his ass. Till next time, share this out. Might not be for you, might be for somebody that you are. And make sure you go to my YouTube channel and follow it. It's bradley.tv. Go follow the YouTube channel. I'm dropping a lot of content there that no one sees anywhere but there. Until next time, keep it real.
Dropping bombs with the real Bradley. Subscribe now.